So here's a question for you. Could someone commit murder and have absolutely no memory of it? And could they actually be found not guilty, all because their mind was, well, asleep? We're about to dive into one of the most baffling cases I've ever come across, a story that really makes you question everything you thought you knew about consciousness and responsibility.
Those were the exact chilling words of a 23-year-old guy named Kenneth Parks. He just stumbled into a police station on May 24, 1987. Imagine the scene. He's covered in blood, his hands are deeply cut, but he doesn't feel any pain. By all accounts, he was just completely and totally bewildered.
So what on earth happened here? I mean, this guy, Parks, he had absolutely no history of violence. He actually had a great relationship with his in-laws. The story goes like this. He falls asleep on his couch. Then in the middle of the night, he gets up, gets in his car, and drives 22 kilometers. He lets himself into their house and brutally attacks them. And then he drives straight to the police and confesses. But here's the kicker, the part that makes no sense. He had no motive. And even stranger, he had zero memory of doing any of it.
So his lawyers came up with a defense that just completely stunned the courtroom. They called it homicidal somnambulism. Their argument was that Kenneth Parks couldn't be guilty because he did all this while he was in a state of deep sleep. He was, they claimed, sleepwalking. And let me tell you, this one defense was about to challenge everything we thought we knew about sleep, about our own minds, and about the law itself.
Okay, to even wrap your head around how this offense could be possible, we have to look at the science. We need to understand what's actually going on inside the brain when someone sleepwalks. So, let's dive in. All right, the official medical name for this is somnambulism. And it's basically a sleep disorder where a person can do some really complex stuff. I'm talking walking, talking, even driving a car, all while their conscious mind is completely checked out, deep asleep. You know, our sleep isn't just one long snooze. We actually go through cycles with different stages. First, you kind of drift off. Then you hit light sleep. After that, you sink into stage 3, which is the deepest, most restorative sleep you can get. And only then do you usually hit REM sleep. That's the part where you dream. This whole cycle, it repeats every 90 to 110 minutes or so.
Now get this, because this right here shatters the biggest myth about sleepwalking. People think it's acting out a dream, right? Nope, it's not. In fact, that's literally impossible. See, during REM sleep, when you're dreaming, your brain has this amazing safety feature. It paralyzes your body so you don't go running around acting out your dreams. Sleepwalking happens in a completely different stage, NREM stage 3, our deepest sleep. That's when your mind is off, but your body can still move.
So, here's the key takeaway. Sleepwalking is basically a state of incomplete awakening. Think of it like a glitch in the system. The part of your brain that controls movement, the motor cortex, it wakes up. But the part that handles rational thought, decision-making, and memory, that's still completely knocked out. So the body is on, but the conscious mind is totally offline. And that is how someone can do something as complex as driving a car and have zero memory of it later. Yeah, this whole split brain thing is pretty bizarre, and it leads to a lot of confusion and myths. So let's separate the facts from the fiction and take a look at what actually triggers one of these episodes.
Okay, let's tackle the biggest myth of all, that you should never, ever wake a sleepwalker because you might give them a heart attack or something. That is just not true. The real danger here is to the sleepwalker themselves. They could trip, fall down the stairs, or wander into trouble. So the best thing to do isn't to shake them awake, but to gently and calmly guide them back to bed. It's that simple.
So what causes this glitch in the system? Well, for people who are susceptible, a few things can trigger it. The big ones are sleep deprivation and major stress. And what do you know? Kenneth Parks was dealing with both of those right before the incident. But other things can set it off too, like certain medications, sleep apnea, or even just a high fever. And check this out, because genetics plays a huge role here. If neither of your parents ever sleepwalked, you've got about a 22% chance of doing it yourself. But if one of your parents was a sleepwalker, your odds jump to over 47%. And if both of them were, whoa, you're looking at a staggering 61.5% chance. It really seems like this is something that can be passed down in our DNA. All right, let's head back to the courtroom because this is where things get really messy. When you have a body that commits a crime, but a mind that was asleep, how does the legal system even handle that? It's not just a legal challenge, it's a huge philosophical minefield.
And this really is the core question, isn't it?
In criminal law, you usually need two things for a conviction: the criminal act itself and what they call a guilty mind, intent. So if a person is genuinely unconscious, can they even have intent? Should they be held responsible for something they had no control over and don't even remember? Well, the legal defense for this has a name. It's called automatism. The argument is basically that the defendant's actions were involuntary, performed without any conscious thought, almost like a robot. It's the law's way of recognizing that body-on, mind-off state we talked about. And in the Kenneth Parks case, this worked. The experts talked about his history of sleepwalking and the massive stress he was under, and the jury bought it. He was acquitted.
But don't think the Kenneth Parks case settled things for good. Not at all. The success of this defense is, frankly, all over the place. Take a case in the U.S., Scott Falter. He murdered his wife and also claimed he was sleepwalking. The jury didn't buy it. They looked at how he tried to hide the weapon and change his clothes and said, no way. He was convicted. Over in India, a case established that yes, sleepwalking can be a defense, but at the end of the day, it all just boils down to one thing. Does the jury believe you?
So, while these crazy murder cases are the ones that grab the headlines, the everyday reality of sleepwalking is much more about simple safety. The biggest danger isn't to other people, it's to the sleepwalkers themselves. And this is way more common than you might think. It's not some super rare disorder. Thankfully, violent cases are the exception, but get this. Studies show that almost 7% of people will sleepwalk at least once in their life. And it's especially common for kids. That number can shoot up to 15%.
That's why creating a safe environment is just absolutely crucial. We're talking about simple things that can literally be life-saving. Securing your home to stop someone from falling or wandering outside is key. Locking doors and windows, putting gates on stairs, getting sharp objects out of the way. And for people who sleepwalk a lot, a simple door alarm can make a huge difference.
And that brings us right back to where we started, to that ultimate difficult question. The science of sleepwalking opens up this fascinating and honestly sometimes scary window into the human mind. It's a phenomenon that completely blurs the line between an action and an intention. It forces us to ask a really profound question that sits right at the crossroads of science, law, and morality. When your mind is asleep but your body commits a crime, where does the responsibility truly lie?